Hello and welcome back. We've now seen how to initialize a variable and how to define it at the command line, but as we saw, that is not a great way to define variables when in automation, as it requires dynamic input, which is the opposite of automated. So in this lesson, we're going to look at a few other ways to define variables and which of those ways take precedence over the others. So let's get started. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is head into my variables.tf and we're going to add a default value. Now go ahead and add that default to whatever operating system you're using. I'm going to use Windows. And anytime I say Windows, you can use Linux. And anytime I say Linux, you can use Windows, just to stay consistent. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. So right now that means that it will always use Windows, or at least fall back to Windows. So what I'm going to do, because it's actually a little bit quicker, is I'm just going to use Terraform console. And then what I'm going to do is type var.host_os. All right, and as you can see, Terraform console is a very handy tool that allows you to access anything within the state that you need. So now I'm going to exit out of that, going to head back to my variables.tf, and let's remove that default and run Terraform console, var.hostos. And as you can see, it says known after apply. And that's because you will need to specify that variable when you apply. Terraform console isn't going to ask you. So now what we want to do, we want to define that another way. Let's go and add another file called terraform.tfvars. Now what this is a way to define our variables, and it's also generally considered to be a sensitive file. You usually will not send this to your repository, but there are several cases where you will. So just keep that in mind. So within this, we can just define the host OS equals Windows, just like so. So now if I run Terraform console, and run var.hostos, it's defined once again. Perfect. So as you see, terraform.tfvars is another way to define our variables. So now I'm going to exit out of there again, clear that. Now let's take a look at another way to define our variables. If we run a terraform console-var equals host_os equals Linux, let's see what happens. var.host_os is now Linux. So if the variable is defined on the command line, and you can use this -var with Terraform plan or Terraform apply or even Terraform destroy, then it will override whatever is set on terraform.tfvars. And terraform.tfvars will override what's set within variables.tf as the default. So let's go ahead and see another example real quick. Let's create another file, and I'm just going to call that, let's just say osx.tfvars. And even though that isn't one of our host OSs, let's go ahead and do that anyway. So we're going to say host_os equals osx, just like so, and save that. And then let's run Terraform console -var-file equals osx.tfvars. var.host_os is now osx. So as you can see, we can utilize the var file argument here to override terraform.tfvars, which then overrides variables.tf with the default setting. All right, so that is everything. We now have a general idea of how variable precedence works within Terraform and different ways to specify those variables. So go ahead and mark this lesson complete. Come on back to the next one and let's continue the course.